what I want to say to you is that there's two pieces to this, and I feel that they're both important to make space for. There's the part where we are going to start practicing, new things, thoughts and feelings that we fire and wire. We're going to start practicing new behaviors. We're going to start to do new strategies. And all of that is essential. It's essential to stepping into some future that's different and more exciting and more of what you want to create. But the other piece that often gets glossed over is rolling out the welcome mat to what's here. And yesterday I had an interview, which will come out soon, with Janine Roth. Does anybody know who Janine Roth is? Some of you know who she is. She's incredible. She wrote this book. She wrote many books, but she wrote this book, Women, Food, and God. And I'm so obsessed with it that literally every page, when I say it's underlined, I mean, it's like scribbled in. It's literally, it's the best book I've ever read. It's the best book I've ever read. And the reason it's the best book I've ever read is because this book teaches you to do the most fundamental thing, which is learn how to feel what you feel. And when you say, I'm afraid of rejection, and when you say, I'm afraid of failure, or whatever else, if we're all being honest, there's things that hurt us and scare us. There's something in that we resist. And there's something in that that's old. And in the book, she does such a beautiful job of helping you pull over and make space for those feelings. The thing about feelings is that the feelings don't hurt us. It's the story we tell ourselves about the feelings. And since we were children, many of us didn't develop the tools to feel what we actually feel. So we do develop an incredible amount of resistance to our feelings, and that resistance derails our life. And when we learn how to listen, we actually find that by feeling the feeling, there's something beyond the feeling that's holding the feeling. And the feeling doesn't annihilate us, and it doesn't take us down, it doesn't destroy us. And there's a divinity there, actually. And then there's a lot of space that gets made because you just let yourself feel. I want to read you something really quick from her book because she does such a great job. So this is just like, I opened to page 100. There's literally so many pages I could have read to you. So listen to this. We live despairing, repetitive, stale, half-dead lives of our own making, as if that's all we can expect. Reoccurrent negative feelings, those that loop in the same cycles again and again without changing, are unmet knots of our past that got frozen in time for the precise reason that they were not met with kindness or acceptance. Can you imagine how your life would have been different if every time you were feeling sad or angry as a child or an adult, you said to yourself, come here, sweetheart, and tell me all about it? If when you were overcome with grief at your best friend's rejection, or someone said to you, if when you were overcome with grief at your best friend's rejection, someone said to you, oh, darling, tell me more. Tell me where you feel those feelings. Tell me how your belly feels, your chest feels. I want to know every little thing. I'm here to listen. I'm here to be with it. All any feeling wants is to be welcomed with with tenderness. It wants to unfold. It wants to relax and tell its story. It wants to dissolve like 1,000 writhing snakes that with a flick of kindness become harmless strands of rope. There was one other thing. So basically, she talks about how it's the story we tell about the feeling that hurts. So when you get into the mind and you feel a feeling, like you're about to go post something or share something or make an offer, and then you feel a feeling, well, you usually skip right over that. you feel something in your chest, you feel something in your stomach, and then you're like, ugh, I'm out of here, I'm bolting. So then your mind takes you on a roller coaster and your mind starts telling you stories. And your mind either gives you all these good ideas about how to distract yourself, like go eat something, go watch something, go call someone, yeah, like run away from what you're feeling, resist it, and distract. And while you're distracting, hoping that that's going to take away the feeling, which it won't, the medicine for the pain is the pain. That's the medicine. But instead, I'm out, bolt, distract. And then while you're thinking you're distracting yourself, you're not. Your mind goes into a story. Oh my God, I could have failed. That person would have said this. Oh my God, then this, then this, then this, and this, and this. Next thing you know, that leads you nowhere good. And your whole body is now in this like frozen state. You're in like fight or flight. You're like out of the magnet. You're just drained. Of course you're drained. You've drained yourself energetically. That's literally what happens when we go into fight or flight. Like it takes so much energy to show up against that tiger that you get wiped out. And the whole thing was a way of avoiding what that feeling is. So truly, truly, if you want to be able to manifest your life, crush your goals, all of that stuff, we also have to be willing to love ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to practice some mindfulness, to not judge one feeling is better than another feeling. Rachel Platten and I talked about that on this week's episode. And she said, she practices with Tara Brach. That's her meditation teacher. And she's like, and I do that whole technique where I'm like, no, where do I feel this? What is this? And so take a guess what the feeling is, because the feeling itself is not scary. And most likely the feeling itself, it just needs to be felt. And what's underneath it might be, there's just a feeling of abandonment. It's old, but it's there. Or there's just a feeling of loss or sadness or grief, or I'm terrified. And then you let yourself actually just get out of the story. Don't feel the story, feel the feeling. And you're like, oh, I feel scared. And it doesn't even matter. Yes, you could go into like, when was the last time I can remember feelings like this is old. This is like a 6-year-old memory, when I was 8 years old. It doesn't even matter. It's about the feeling. Where in my body do I feel this feeling? What would happen if I just said, hey, I'm here for you. I'm feeling this feeling. And yeah, you might just sit outside looking out at the clouds and just let yourself cry for 5 minutes without the story, just the feeling like, oh, this just needed to come through. Tears are such a gift that we've been given an ability to release and process things that get held in the body. And guess what? We're humans, we're sensitive, we're alive, we're constantly living and breathing energy and picking up other people's energy. We're empathic. So the fact that this is actually even a revelation is really weird. The fact that we're not living in a society where people are constantly being like, hey, how do you feel? I'm really checking in. And that question isn't a fake question. And that question isn't about you telling them a story about how you're feeling and therefore going into all of this resistance. It's literally like, what's the feeling? And this is what people now, thankfully, are starting to teach kids, right? It's like, that conscious awareness of like naming it, right? And I learned this when I studied mindfulness at UCLA. It was like, if you could just name it, it was like, oh, it's like, I think the feeling is anxiety. It's like, boom, the anxiety just like went way down, right? If you could just name the sadness, it's like, so I would encourage you, instead of getting frozen in it, I know it's so scary. We really, really still believe that these feelings will just wipe us out, but the feelings don't. The feelings actually feel good to feel. Anything that's actually integrated and real that actually is going on, there's a feeling of integration and feeling satisfied. There's an equanimity of, I can be with this. And now I really get to find myself. And now I really get to know my own strength, because I am something that's behind this feeling. Holding this feeling is me, is my well-being, is my strength. And so I can make space to feel whatever this is. And then from that place, now I can go into this day right? And that's part of what the Julia Cameron morning pages, that's what the morning pages are all about. It's like, let's get rid of dumping. Let's dump that first. So then when we can go through the day, we can like start adding in. I think that sometimes we just intuitively feel resistance to any kind of leveling up because we know we're leaving something behind. And so it's about like, let's come home to where we're at, make a beautiful space. And then what do we want to have? What do we want to think? Well, how does that make us feel, right? And how can we start aligning with our highest vibration? It's right there. It's one breath away. And now we can start going into this day and all of the rest. But this is the journey of real self-love, is feeling the feeling. And you can tell when you're around people and they're integrated, and you can tell when they're not. You ever have a conversation with someone and they just like smile a lot, or like they laugh all the time? They just laugh all the time and you're like, there's something about that that makes me uncomfortable. They're just not integrated. There's just something that they, and really what it is, it's another way of saying there's something about themselves that they shame, that's not welcome at the table. But when you welcome your sadness to the table, you actually can welcome your joy, and your joy is bigger. Your sadness is available, then more joy is available too. And when you welcome the parts of you that are scared or anxious and all of that stuff, you're just much more present. You're much more whole. You're much more like, yeah, that's called being here. And those are all okay. All those feelings are okay. So this is definitely a combination of all those things. And this is definitely a safe space to hopefully look at that stuff with your closer, people who become closer and closer friends, and be like, that's all it is. I'm just scared. And then it's like, all right, so let's collectively give each other encouragement and start taking one baby step forward. And one thing I'll just say to end it about baby steps is that Allison Prince recently came in to do a bonus session and made to do this. And she said, I'm so grateful that as I was beginning and as I was going to every next level, God didn't give me the next 15 steps. I just knew that one next step I had to take. And she said, and that's on purpose, because if I would know too many steps, I wouldn't do any of these things. So that micro step, that next right thing, is really all that we need. It's more than enough. And if we can have the courage to show up and take that one next step, then the next step will be revealed just when we need it, and so on and so forth.